Light Talkers. This is Stan in Gainesville, Florida, and you are listening to, guess what? Light Talk.
Hi, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas, and today we're going to talk about everything from grad school to giving up and moving on Light Talk.
And this is David in the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers. Welcome to episode 72. The Lumen Brothers are very close to our milestone show, which will hopefully be in the next couple of weeks. And you guys know what our milestone is?
We're still doing it, and we haven't gotten into a fist fight.
That's true.
We got close, but we close.
All good brothers get close to fist fights. But as I mentioned last week, we are coming up on 50,000 downloads. We have to come up with a really big celebration. And we have no idea what we're going to do. So, guys, we're going to have to brainstorm.
I think we should postpone to 100.
No. Remember when we first hit our 100 number?
I remember when we hit 200 and we thought, oh my God, we're famous.
200, and then we hit 500, and then we will hit 1,000. Yeah. Then
Those
it was 10,000, and then it was 20,000, and then it was 25,000, and now we're almost at 50. So we have to come up with something. So if you guys have any idea of what we should do, please tell us. Please post it on the Light Talk Facebook group page, and then we'll consider it. So now that we are in mid-August, the three of us, along with all the faculty and students who listen to this crazy podcast, are beginning a new school year. So Stan, did you buy your Maui Wowie lunchbox?
No. Dick Tracy, baby.
Oh, man.
Dick Tracy. Now, you remember Dick Tracy. Here's the thing. I'm waiting this Christmas. I get one of those wristwatch phone thingies. That was the first time we ever saw those iWatches. Remember, that was Dick Tracy. That was a dream. And
That's right. I wore the X-ray glasses. Do you have a lunchbox, Steve?
I do not.
I do. It's the Remains of the Day lunchbox. It's literally remains of the day. It's wonderful. And then finally, we have some very exciting news coming up. But we can't announce it right now. So this is something that's going to be really cool, and we will tell you guys as soon as it happens.
Hey, wait a minute. I don't even know what that is.
I'll tell you later, Stan. So anyway,
you haven't even told me.
It's a secret. So anyway,
okay.
Let's get on with the show. And I have the first question.
All right.
Travis Blansett writes, I've been listening to the podcast on my way to grad school. Well, that's a mistake. I guess he's driving. It was mentioned that students who had a couple of years off before reaching grad school excelled in their programs more than students who go directly from undergrad. Since I am one of those students who is going directly, what do I need to do in my first year to be successful and set myself up for success in my program? Well, yeah, Travis, we have talked about this before, and we can only talk about our experiences, and certainly my experience has been, after 28 years of recruiting, that students who take a few years off usually excel very well. I mean, I say this all the time. 90% of the students who take some time off usually do extremely well in graduate school. I cannot say the same for people who go directly into grad school from undergrad, and there are several reasons for that. First of all, let me tell you about taking time off before grad school. Usually students will take time off away from the institution of higher learning, and it's a freedom time. It's time to travel. It's time to do theater. It's time to work in the industry. Sometimes it's just time to explore yourself. But a big part of that is maturing, being able to get out there and traveling and feeling a lot more independent. That's a big deal because graduate school is totally different from undergrad. And a lot of people have difficulty going from the undergraduate type of mentality into the graduate research mentality. So that's why it's sometimes good to go ahead and take a break. However, that is not true for everyone, because the three of us have experienced students who went directly into grad school who have also excelled. So I think it's an individual thing. What can you do? First of all, don't wait till your first year. Start during the summer. We're at the end of the summer, so this probably won't help you, but it certainly will help some listeners who are going to be doing it next year. Develop your research skills. Go the extra mile. Self-educate. There are all these great internet tutorials. There are tutorials on Vectorworks, on SketchUp, on the Adobe suite like Photoshop, Premiere, After Effects. Learn different board software like HOG, MA, EOS, etc. If you don't know it, learn it. Do your research. Draw. Photography. Take as many photos as possible. Develop your eye. And also, watch all those great webinars on live design. There are some wonderful, wonderful webinars there that you will learn a lot from. And of course, listen to our show, Light Talk. There are, 72 episodes? Counting this one. You will learn a lot. I'm telling you, I learn something new from these two guys every week. And, I've been doing lighting forever. So I think everyone has something to learn. And I think that's a really, really good plan of attack that will prepare you with knowledge by the time you get in. If you feel that there is a hole in your knowledge, do everything you can to fill it. Guys, what do you think?
I think you hit just about everything I could think, because as I was thinking of things, you hit them all. But I think I might have got two that are sort of the same, but I'm going to just say this. We had our first introduction to our grad students today, and an incoming costume student, because she was at UF's sort of orientation, said, we noticed that a lot of the PhD students, they get this thing called an IDP. IDP stands for Individual Development Plan. Now, that's probably extremely formal, where the PhD student lays out what their plan's going to be over their 2 or 3 years. I have started doing this with my students for about 3 years now, and I forget how it began, but I've kept it and I think maybe I might have even learned it from Steve. I don't remember where I got this, so I credit whoever told me this. I sit down with the students on the first day, and we're going to do this next Wednesday, and they're going to make a list of some of the things that they know, that they don't know, or that they don't do well, that they want to have firmly under their belt when they graduate. And then 3 years from now, we go back and we look at, I post that document on my bulletin board in my office, and every once in a while we look at it, and by the third year, they should feel confident in those things. So I would say, understand what you don't know. Don't expect grad school to be like undergrad. It's a completely different animal, as David has said. I'm just amplifying that. And learn from everyone, your colleagues. You have to the self-learning thing can't be emphasized too much. It used to be that faculty were the source of knowledge. We are not the source of knowledge anymore. The knowledge is all over the internet. What we are, though, is the source of inspiration and experience. Leverage what your mentor has from his or her experience.
Well, I would say in that first year particularly, show up to class, have your work ready, and be engaged. Put your cell phone down, close your laptop. When one of your colleagues is presenting their work in class, look at the work and ask questions and engage in a conversation with them. Trust your professor. If you have the Roscoe catalog memorized, throw that swatch book away and never use it till you graduate. Try Lee, try GAM, do something you haven't done. But the biggest thing is don't just keep doing what you did as an undergraduate because that was successful, let's say, and you're comfortable doing it. You've got to work outside your comfort zone, and your professors are going to help you do that. So work, take a lot of risks, ask questions, be engaged, and even if your work is bad, go to class. Do not cut class that day because you're embarrassed about the quality of your work. If your teachers can't see your work and having a conversation about it, then that's a big wasted day. And I just don't think there are any days you can waste in grad school.
Here's a landmine to avoid. Don't try and show anybody how much you know or how good you are. Because if you were already so good and you already knew so much, you wouldn't be coming back to school. So don't, be humble.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Stan. And Steve, that was wonderful advice. I just want to say something, follow up here. Never skip class. If you want to get thrown out of grad school, skip class. Go ahead and do it. We all understand that stuff happens in life, right? So let's say you didn't get your homework done. Come to class with what you have, because if you don't bring something in, there's nothing to talk about. and that you're not contributing. At least when you're there, you are contributing. Remember, you're going to graduate school, which probably means that it's away from home and away from your previous undergraduate program. This is one of the rare opportunities that you'll have to make a new first impression. So make a good impression, right? Be engaged. Those are wonderful, wonderful words of advice from Steve and Stan.
Well, the other thing, David, on that topic is that, like Madonna, you're reinventing yourself. No one knows anything about you. Any kind of tragedies or screw-ups you've had in the past, no one is going to know unless you tell them. So David's right. Yeah, it is a blank canvas.
You know, when I reinvented myself by moving 6,000 miles away, and I mean as far away from New York City as I could get, and I absolutely reinvented.
Yeah,
myself.
you went to Hawaii, right?
I did. It was like self-banishment.
Well, I got close to that. I went to Dallas. It was great because, I was living in Florida. And I went to Dallas, which to me, there was nothing there
Different
except
culture.
for Bill and Jean Eckhart. And it was great. It was great to reinvent myself.
I mean, it was culture shock. There's culture shock, too. I don't know where Travis is coming from or where he's going. I think I actually know Travis. I think he actually visited my campus. But, different parts of America, there's different cultures. And you do have to. So I would say be willing to adjust. It may not be what you're used to, so don't judge it. Just say, oh, they do things different here. I mean, every school has its culture. And so you want to not critique it, you want to be a part of it and contribute to that culture.
Well, let me tell you something. When I went to Dallas, it was in 1977, and I thought it was this backwards, middle of the country place. I was prejudiced against Dallas because, I was a liberal from Florida and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, boy, did that surprise me. I love Dallas. The nicest people in the world. I'm talking about in the 70s. There was a lot of culture there.
Sure.
There was dance. There was opera.
Oil
money.
baby.
But you know something? The people were really nice and really smart.
Some of the friendliest people. I married Texas, man. So you.
Okay.
Well, Ben in New Orleans writes, how closely do you work with tech staff? What are some tips or important things to remember about your staff? I think I can answer this in a very succinct way. We stand on their shoulders. It's just that simple. You can't do what you do without them. So closely, I keep my electricians informed about even if I'm thinking about something, I'm texting them or calling them, what do you think of this? What do you think? Could I do that? Will that work? And also because they'll give me ideas. Tips, respect. Respect, thank you, please, always.
Absolutely.
Always respect and always manners.
Remember, these are your teammates. Whether you're teaching and you have your tech staff there, or you're actually designing a show and your tech staff is there. We're all part of the same company, the same team that's creating the show. So without them, your show's not going to happen. What do you think, Steve?
Well, I would say let them do their job and stay out of their way.
Don't micromanage. Yep.
Absolutely. We sort of talked about it last week when we were talking about working with master electricians in Europe. The crews work differently. And they work differently in the United States and North America as well. So, you have to go with the flow. You really do. Don't try to change anything.
I heard a good quote the other day that might be relevant to this question. Steve has said, hire good people and let them do their job. But I heard sort of a funny one the other day that sort of, I guess it was about an advertising person who said, first-rate people hire first-rate people. And second-rate people hire third-rate people.
That's all that's
I guess
left.
because a second-rate person looks better if they hire a third-rate person. But if you're really a first-rate person, you try to hire first-rate people, and then there's no tension.
Okay, we have a question from James in Germany, and he writes, how do you know you are finished?
Oh, I have a great answer for this.
Well, go ahead, Stan.
The great answer comes from Julia Cameron in her wonderful book, The Artist's Way, A Spiritual Guide to Higher Creativity. And this quote I tell to my students all the time. In art, no work of art is ever finished. There are just interesting places to stop. How's that? That's pretty good, huh?
So James, I got an answer for you here. I think
answer.
For me, it's am I happy with the result? If I'm happy with the result and ready to move on, then I finished. Have I done my best? Is my work clear? Have I succeeded in communicating the design team's concept? So, a designer knows, and Stan, maybe touched on this a bit. The designer knows when he or she is finished. That's not the same as saying the work is finished. For example, there are projects that I want to revisit in my ongoing relationship with some dance companies. For example, I may not be happy with the second section, but I know I have a long-term relationship and I have several bites at that apple. And there are other pieces that I've done that I'm very happy with, and it's finished in my mind. I can go to sleep at night and not think about the work anymore. So I think it's an ongoing question that you have to answer yourself as an artist.
I would agree with what Steve says. And there's another quote from that book that sort of links to the first one. They're never really finished. There's just an interesting place to stop, or when you're happy or when you think it's right. But there are people who don't. And in her book, she instructs, and this is a great quote too that I love, that perfectionists, when somebody says they're a perfectionist, mean I got to keep working on it. I got to keep working on it because I'm a perfectionist. She says that perfectionism is egotism in disguise. I think if you're really an artist, the work flows through you. It's a creative process. And when your ego gets in the way, it's not that, I can't be done. I got to do more. I got to tinker with. And actually, oftentimes you end up ruining something nice because your ego keeps telling you it's not finished. You got to keep tinkering. Right? It's sort of like, look at the great art in the world. Do you think, at what point do you just stop and say, I think it's good. It'll never be perfect. Perfect is a silly word in that regard, I think.
You never finish. You just run out of time.
That's right.
That usually happens with musicals.
Right.
Listen, I don't think I'm ever finished. I don't think I ever finished a show. And I used to think I finished, but Steve's right. You do run out of time. About 30 years ago, I started doing shows that toured to several cities. And in the opera world, they hire you to come in and remount the show. Sometimes you'll have your assistant do it or associate, but most of the time I would do it because if the director was there, I was going to be there. Because I learned really quickly that you really are never finished because the show is constantly evolving. So as you go from city to city, that show may change and did change. One show that I did about 10 years ago, Rusalka, which started in Oslo, went to several cities, and I do remember the first city it went to was Tokyo. And this was a show I was extremely proud of. I think I spent 2 weeks queuing it. It was an elaborate lighting and projection show, and I designed both of them. And I thought, hey, we're just going to remount this show. Well, my colleague, who was the set costume designer, said, oh, no, we're not. We're going to just evolve the show. And I was thinking, yeah, but the show's so good. Why would we want to change it? Well, because the show moves. That's the beauty of theater. It's a live event, and it's going to evolve. And it did. And I had a blast working on that show. So I don't know. I don't think you're ever done.
Well, you are listening to Light Talk with the Lumen Brothers, and Light Talk is sponsored by...
We have a public service announcement from No More 10 out of 12s. 3 tips to navigate craft services. We all like to descend upon craft services like the 8th plague of Moses, but before you do that, take a moment to plan your pro strategy. Tip number 1, plan your day around the craft service table. A real pro can double dip. That is, pass craft services on the way to do something and then on your way back. Bonus points if you know the layout of the table so you don't have to break stride searching for cookies. Tip number 2. The same way a puppy loves a treat, so does the best boy. Always leave room in your kit for snacks to bribe the boss. If you have a radio, set up a discreet channel so that you can let the best boy know the coconut cookies have been set out. You might even have a code like, the Marx Brothers are here. Finally, if you see a great dessert, grab that first. The green beans and the fried chicken are never going to run out, but that dessert will go poof faster than a breaker. So now, even on your first day, you can navigate craft services like a pro. This has been a public service announcement from No More 10 out of 12s and a big tip of the hat to the blackandblue.com and Evan Lutzy. The blackandblue.com is a camera assistant's go-to website and blog, and I have to say it's a great source of knowledge and humor.
And sounds like truth also, Steve. Hey, I do have a question for you, or for Stan. I think Stan may be able to answer this. What was the 8th plague of Moses?
You know, I think Steve made that up, so I'm going to have
No, there was an 8th plague of Moses. Was it the locusts?
I have to look it up. I think there were more than 8. Were there?
There were 10, but he specifically said the 8th plague. Was there 10? Oh boy, we're not good Jews. We're going to have to do some research on this.
Oh God,
I think it was locusts.
Okay, here they're called the plagues of Egypt, and there were 10.
Yep, I was right on that.
And you are David wins the cheroot.
Yes!
He is correct.
Locusts!
It was locusts, followed by darkness for 3 days and death of the firstborn on the 10th.
That's right. Well, I knew about the 10th. Everyone knows the 10th. I mean, that was the one that the Pharaoh just said. But it was by Edgar G. Robinson. I channeled Edgar G. Robinson at that moment. He said, "Don't believe him. He's taking us out into the desert." Okay.
Are you sure that wasn't Betty Davis you were doing?
I thought it was John Wayne. Anyway, Stan, why don't you tell us what's going on?
Well, it is August, and you know what that means. It's the dog days. But it's also time for High-End Systems to announce the Phase 2 teams for the international, or I guess it's the American Hog Factor. Get this, 63 schools entered Hog Factor, and 3 teams are now gearing up to travel to Las Vegas and LDI to show their stuff. So I'm going to let you know who won. The 3 Phase 2 teams are Solar Tartan from Carnegie Mellon University in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, the Pig Ears from California State University, Long Beach, and Brown Sugar from Southern Methodist University. I think I know some of those people.
Brown Sugar.
Wow.
Don't let you dance so good, babe.
So here's what you need to know. Be sure to mark your calendar to see this great event. And thanks again, of course, to ETC and High-End Systems, 2 companies who really know how to put their money where their mouth is when it comes to supporting the students. This means that 9 students are fully funded to attend LDI. That means airfare, hotel, meals, and full access, a full conference pass to LDI. I used to love when I could afford those. So that's really a great deal. What a great opportunity to sit in on a few classes, walk the trade floor, and get to play with that wonderful rig at High-End puts up for Hog Factor. And you know what's the best part? They're all going to get to attend a Light Talk podcast. I'm sure they're clearing their Saturday afternoons just to meet the 3 of us. Doors open at 3-ish, but I would get in line at about 6 a.m. to get a good seat near the Lumen brothers and our honorary Lumen sister, Ann McMills, who'll be joining us as a guest host that day. So this will be a Light Talk first. 4 hosts for free. When can you get a deal like that? And now, back to Light Talk. David has the next question.
I pity those poor kids. Anyway, coming on Light Talk. Actually, we had a blast last year. That was a great show. And it was the first live show we did.
How many lumens for how many watts? That was the statistic that I took away. It was like 1 million lumens for like 250 amps or something like that. It was some ridiculous ratio of amps to lumens.
Oh, it was insane. Wait, you're talking about the high-end booth.
Yes.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was insane. Anyway, Jennifer in Louisville writes, I have been working in the business for several years now. At what point do I say, enough is enough, and move on to a new career?
Oi.
All right. So the easy answer is when you stop having fun.
When you're finished.
When you're finished. When you stop having fun. It's funny when Steve and I were talking about doing this crazy show. We were saying, hey, we'll just do it until we stop having fun. And I think that is sort of the simple answer here. This is a tough business, and it's really not for everyone. You have to deal with politics, personalities, and in many cases, a lot of stupidity. We've all seen it. We've been in the business, the 3 of us, probably a combined 100 years at least. And we've seen a lot of it, and we're survivors. And I'm going to be really honest with you. There were times when I was thinking about giving it up. because I'd get so pissed off at someone. The show wasn't going well. My programmer was incompetent. It was always something. And I would call my wife and say, I've had it. This is it. I'm going to cancel all my shows. And she was smart enough and wise enough to say, yeah, right, David, you'll feel differently in an hour. And she was right. I've done this. And when you do go back, it's just not time. And there's something magical that still holds you in the business. And I must say that there's something magical that's still holding me in the business right now. But getting back to all the challenges that you reach, I'm going to tell a real quick story about a classmate of mine. And she went to New York right out of grad school. And the big thing in New York, and this is back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, was that you had to pass the union exam. And this designer, she was amazing. She was an artist. She knew how to handle crews. I worked with her many times. And she could never pass the union exam. She took the union exam 6 times in New York for 6 years. They always had a reason to fail her. And back then, the judges who sat, not all of them, but there were 1 or 2 exceptions, were real jerks. They just found reasons for her not to pass. So the last time she took it, they told her that the reason why they failed her was because they did not agree with her point of view. She supported the point of view. She lit the show beautifully. All her paperwork was correct. But because they did not agree with her point of view or concept of the show, or personal connection with the show, they failed her. And she had it. That was it. She gave it up. And that was one of the saddest stories that I've heard in my career. And I know this person, and I've always felt bad for her because they broke her. We all reach moments like this, and you have to be strong to break through them and to conquer them. So she had a reason, and she thought, I'm not putting up with this BS anymore. And that was her time. So I think we all have our time. What do you think?
Well, I think your question about when do you know it's finished, I think the question is, does your career allow you to live life by your own standards? And if it does, then you never give it up and you find a way to persevere. So, I might make more money doing something else, but is every day kind of a misery? Is every day I'm looking forward to the weekend to get away from what I'm having to do, to earn a living. For me, my career has had ups and downs, but it's always allowed me to live life by my own standards. It's allowed me to pick and choose pretty much what I want to do, when I want to work, the people I want to work with. And there's been bumps in the road, but, the freedom working in the entertainment industry that I have gotten offsets any of the kind of annoyances or pains or setbacks I've had to put up with.
Well, I think this is a hard question. I think you guys said some really profound stuff. And I've just been thinking about this, and I was kind of introspecting what was it that I fell in love with. Because I think Steve's point about doing something you like on your own terms, if you just have a job that you go to work every day and you sort of can't stand it, we want to go home and just collect the money. I think most of us who are in this, we want to be engaged in what we do. So I think I fell in love with maybe 3 things. I love a good story. I love light and as a medium and what it does, and I love technology. And so that works for me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to work in theatrical production all the time. If I'm working with light, or I'm working in a creative way, or there's a story to be told, or there's narrative involved, then that makes me happy. So I don't think that you have to pigeon yourself into, I don't know what Jennifer does in Louisville, whether it's theater or dance or rock and roll or corporate, or what aspect that she works with light is. But I think to think of it more broadly, I'm just going to think about my day-to-day, for example. There were parts of my day-to-day that were not so pleasant. And then this morning, I was sitting, just to give an example, I wasn't a lighting designer this morning, but I was certainly working with light. I was sitting in a catwalk on a piece of carpeting with 3 architects okay, as we looked at how we were going to handle the front light for this building. And we started, and it was so funny, we started to design. As we're sitting, I said, this is the greatest design meeting I've had. And we're sitting in the up in the air, and then we had this great time discussing how we were going to light this and light that, and the story about how this room is going to be used and what kinds of stories are going to be told and what kind of music is going to be done. So I got a lot of joy out of that, but it wasn't under the same conditions of technical rehearsal. Now, that doesn't mean that 18 months from now, when I talk about this project again and we're in construction and there'll be bumps in the road, that I won't have the stories to tell then. But I'm still in love with those three essential ideas. And I think if I fell out of love with those three things, and I'll just repeat, storytelling, creative activity in whatever form, and light, right? If I can get those, I know that makes me happy. If those things are shriveling for you, then I think it might be time for a new career.
It all depends on what you value. And some people value money. Some people value fame. Some people value friendship. And some people value synergy that you could only get when you work with a group of other artists. So the day that what you value is not happening anymore, that's when you give it up. That's when it's done.
I think David makes a good point. Can I just throw one more value out there? And maybe this is a good way to wrap it. There's one thing that all of us get exactly the same amount of. And this comes from the wisdom of a blind woman and a deaf woman and a mute woman named Helen Keller, who said, everyone gets the same amount of time, 24 hours in a day. And the most precious thing you have on this earth is the time that you're given. And you don't know when that's coming to an end. So I would, that value, be really thoughtful, mindful, and maybe even selfish about your time. If you're not spending your time the way you want to spend your time, acknowledge that and then see what you can do about changing it.
Yep, because we're only here on this earth for a very limited time. Hey guys, that Hammond organ solo in the background tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. Don't forget to visit our website at lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook with our ever-growing Light Talk Facebook group page. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Lumen Brother insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast.
In other words, if you're out in a thunderstorm, take cover from that
Not under a tree.
Because that lightning can really get you.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to tune in next week when we discuss what's with all these great LED Lecos?
Yeah.
What is the best wash light? What is the difference between phase and polarity? And how discriminating are you with shows that may offend you?
All that and a new sponsor, Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around this world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Yeah.